All right. Who's ready to get started? Nobody except me? Oh, okay. Everybody. Okay. Oh, thank you guys for showing up. I'm really excited about this workshop for a lot of reasons. I really think this may be the best workshop uh, for a believer, somebody that believes that God is who he says he is, who said it in the Bible, that Jesus is his son. This is the first workshop where I'm really fully embracing my previous life as a pastor and my current life as minister of the gospel through chiropractic. And I know that sounds weird. Like, aren't you a doctor of chiropractic? Yeah, that's my degree. But what Jesus called me to do, what God called me to do, is to minister to people and to serve people and to love people and to reach them where they are, not just for this current life, but for eternity. And I really feel like I can do that best through health. That's where God's gifted me. And that's one of the things that I realized when I went through Bible college. And I was with a whole bunch of people that are amazing pastors right now. And one of the things that I noticed about them that I didn't see in myself is that they absolutely loved to get into the technical details of scripture and scriptural interpretation. That interested me, but I wasn't like full blown, like, I want to spend hours and hours and hours doing this. And then they would do hours and hours of that. And then they'd get up and talk about it and try to draw you in to their discussion of it, which is great. Like, that's absolutely, necessary in the church. But I could tell right away that that wasn't my calling. That's not where God needed me to be. That I was much more excited about going out and serving people. Like, the missions trips always got me really excited. I thought for a little bit, like, maybe God's calling me to full-time ministry. But then I realized, no, that's more of group A, all those pastor types, just out somewhere else, and they get to do more of the working trips and host people, but they're doing that stuff on a daily basis. And so, as I was getting to a point when I was ready to move on, I happened to meet my wife, and my wife is really pivotal in directing me into chiropractic. I knew that I was getting into healthcare, and she'll tell you that. Like, I had already made the decision that I was going to transition from ministry into chiropractic, or not chiropractic school, but healthcare. But I was looking at med school. I was looking to take the next 4 to 8 years of my life in an academic institution, learning high levels of what it meant to help the sick get well. Because I really felt like, as the hands and feet of Christ, like, the church is missing that side. Right? You look at the church as a whole today, minus like Seventh-day Adventists, there is almost no focus on health. In fact, if you look at the lifestyle of the church, what do you see when you go to a small group? Coffee and donuts, right? Yeah, you don't talk about gluten-free. You don't talk about the salad you had for lunch. You're not talking about the exercise program or the fitness routine that your men's group is going through. Like, yeah, there's a high level of spiritual learning that can happen, and a lot of social component to this, and definitely the spiritual side, depending on whether your church is alive or dead. But it's missing that whole physical component. Now, some churches are the exception. It's not just Seventh-day Adventists that get it. Like, some churches really get this. But back in around 2010, some of my colleagues in Max Living, they realized this huge hole in the church when it came to health. We, as Max Living doctors, we recognize that health is not a feeling, right? Because you can feel fine on type 2 diabetes so long as you take your insulin, right? Right? Health is more than that. Health is function, but it's mental, emotional, it's physical, and it's spiritual. And the church really pours into the mental, emotional, and spiritual side, don't they? Yeah, I mean, we really do. If you go to church on Sunday, you're going to hear about how you got to get your mind right, how to get your act right, how to get your spirit right. But how often do they talk about the physical side, unless it's talking about going out and serving people food at a soup kitchen? I can't think of the last time my pastor did. My pastor is somebody that works out. Like, I can tell over the summer, he like bulked up, he's got cut and trim. Like, that's good for him, but talk to me about it too. Talk about your experience, talk about what that means for you and what you're able to do in the ministry. Because if you're stuck to the couch, can you go serve in the soup kitchen? You can't. And each of us have been called to something. There's a calling bigger than just like what you did for a living. Right? I know my calling is bigger than what I do for a living because I have a family. My first ministry is always to my family. I always serve my family first. If my son, and this happened to me, right? You guys all heard the story of my son, how he quit breathing, went to the emergency room. If that was to happen again right now, do you think I'd stick around for the end of this talk? No, because my first ministry is to my family. You know, I have to be there for them. And if I can't physically be there for them, in a way, it almost doesn't matter if I can emotionally and spiritually be there for them. It undermines it at a minimum. And so we have to bring this in. We have to talk to the people around us about it, not just because we don't get complete health without it, but because of what's going on around us, right? These stats are old and they're worse now. But you look at where we're at as a culture, where we're at as a society, and where we're at as a church is actually worse than where we are as Americans. You know, we spend more money than any other country in the world on healthcare. And we're one of the sickest industrialized nations in the world. We have a lower life expectancy than every other industrialized nation. And we spend almost $3,000 more per year per person than the next country on that list. And they live 4 years longer than us on average. And so it's like, what are they doing differently? Well, number one, they have a prevention mindset, right? And you see this in scripture. You see, talking about stewardship, right? Before you go build a tower, consider the cost. That's a proverb. Consider the cost before you go build a tower. That talks about preparation. Like, you got to work out the numbers. You got right? You talk about the parable of the three stewards, or the parable of the talents is another name of it. And the master of the house gave money to the first one. He gave 10 talents, and he went out and he invested it and got 10 talents back on top of the 10 talents he had already invested. The next servant, he got 5, and he got 5 talents in addition to what he did. And the last servant, what did he do? He just stuck it in the dirt. Got no return on his investment, was only able to give that talent back. And, the master of the house wasn't pleased. He talks about kicking him out and talking about how the people that wind up in hell are just like that. And so God calls us to something more than just being. God calls us to something more than just doing what everybody else around us does. Because if we do what everybody else around us does, what kind of results do we expect? The same results that everybody else gets. Right? And you definitely don't want to be in that list. And the part that scares me the most is the kids. You look at the children around my children's age, and I don't know about you, but we had one fat kid in my class growing up. And it would be a stretch to say now that he was fat then. Like, I don't know that he would qualify. But we have almost a quarter of our kids are obese now. And it's lifestyle, it's physical. It's not the spiritual and the emotional and the mental are part of this, but it's the physical side that we're completely missing as a culture is being amplified in the church because we're ignoring it. And we don't see what scripture has to say about this stuff. So we really do. We have to go back to the beginning. We have to go back to Genesis, right? When you talk about your goals and where you want to be, you have to start with the end in mind. And that's what God did at creation. He wanted an eternal relationship with someone that was like him. And so he created us in his image, as his image bearers. People that, could choose of their own accord. Because he created a whole bunch of angels just to worship him all day. But that wasn't enough because they didn't have free will. They were not in his image. He couldn't, communion with them. He couldn't come together and have a discussion about what's happening around them. And so he created humans as the pinnacle of creation, the very last thing that and it's the dessert, and then everything you get there. But then we took that free will, we were deceived, and we started going away. Well, what did God create us in? He created us in a perfect environment, in a body that was capable of living for eternity. What's changed with that body? Nothing except the lifestyle. Nothing except the lifestyle and the environment too, right? Because we were kicked out of the garden where we were eating plants, fruits, and vegetables basically all the time, possibly eggs. We weren't killing animals for food at that point. Now, I'm not here to say that you need to be a vegetarian or a vegan, but that's just where God created us. In the Garden of Eden, you only needed plant life to sustain human life. You didn't have to kill anything in order to continue living. But then, right, we lived, and the human body in the environment that was outside of the garden still lived for almost 1,000 years. Even being separated from God, even with that spiritual bond and that lack of communion, we lived for 1,000 years at a time. So what changed? Well, the next big thing that changed was the flood. All right, mankind sinned so much that when we look back on ancient grave sites, we see entire generations of men wiped out because of the fighting that was taking place. Part of the reason for the patriarchy that we hear about historically is like suppressing women is actually because the men were so wiped out that the man's life became so much more valuable than the women's in that time because they were so rare, because they were being murdered and massacred in battles with power struggles and all this war. And so they're in all these ancient mass graves, just men, only XY chromosomes. And then God had to wipe out that civilization with a massive flood, saving one person, Noah. And after the flood, what does he say? My 120 years. And now we look at the genetic research out of Harvard. So not chiropractic research, not a Christian theological research, but Harvard research. When they were studying the human genome, they wanted to know what's the potential for mankind to live healthy. If we do everything right and everything goes according to plan, we should be living to 120 years. Not hard capped, right? We hear stories of somebody living to 123 or 127 occasionally. And you look at biblically, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob were like 150, 140, 130. Moses lived to 130 as well. But then after that, we don't hear about anybody living very much longer. Ancient Greeks were kind of the exception. They lived into their 60s. But since then, it was really hard fall off, where we see cultures and societies where the average life expectancy were in their 30s and 40s. Like we really missed the mark. You look at Europe during the bubonic plague and the life expectancy during that time. And it was like, well, they were eating rotten meat and didn't have access to vegetables because the overlords were stealing whatever you grew from the peasants and then letting them buy back some of it, and not enough to sustain life. They were just getting by. They were just focused on survival. The kids, you didn't care about infant mortality because as soon as that kid was old enough to pick up a hoe, he was helping to hoe the ground with you, right? Things just severely missed the mark. And it's only really in the last 200 years where things have started to shift the other direction, where we've started to get closer and closer, just even from, I would say, an emotional, societal, cultural level, where we're starting to get this interaction with each other a little bit more, right? Where we value life more and more, where we're not just tossing it to the side. And so we're seeing that as that happens, we care more. And so a lot of our resources, a lot of our money is being invested back into how do we get people healthier? How do we keep people healthier? How do we stay healthier? And now we're at a point where, for the first time in over 200 years, our life expectancy, other than World War I, where I did a little bit of this, is starting to creep back down again. Over the last 4 years, the life expectancy, especially in the United States of America, has dropped about 3 years per person. An average of 3 years. We went from 82 down to 78 point something. So what does that mean? Well, those of us that are getting closer to the 78 point something, we're probably going to outlive that. Probably are. And actually, statistics say that if you live to be 80, odds are pretty good that you might live another decade or two. Most of us don't like that idea because of how we've seen our health decline as we cross that 40, 50, 60 mark. Our health has declined with that, and we're like, I don't want to live in a nursing home, just hopped up on meds, and basically the only thing saying I'm alive is a couple of brain waves and a heartbeat, right? We don't want that. We want to live with vitality to the end of life, right? And we want to enjoy kids and grandkids and great grandkids and be able to play frisbee with them on the beach type of thing, right? But we're in a society where that's becoming less and less the case because we're getting stuck in nursing homes and hospice care. And yeah, the life expectancy may not be dropping as quickly as it could if we didn't have all the medications and surgeries and the emergency side that does so good to keeping you alive but not truly living. And that's really the theme, is where we're at in America right now is we stay alive a long time, but we're not truly living. And that's a problem, because what did Jesus say in John 10:10 that he came to do? I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Not some. In fact, I would say, just from an understanding of what it means to sin. Sin means missing the mark. It's an archery term. When you are trying to live your best life and you sin, it doesn't mean you did something horribly wrong and you deserve to go to hell because you missed the mark. It just means that you missed the mark. And the mark is perfection. That's what God does every time. He hits the mark. He hits it dead on. He hits a bullseye. We miss the mark because we're not God, right? We've been separated and we're no longer there. And just that alone is what keeps us away from God. It's not him, it's us. We can't get there. We're imperfect archers, right? And in health, we've missed the mark. We're not getting to that bullseye. Not even the one that's been reset because of the flood and because of the way that we're not living in communion with God and others and even nature around us. And so what do we have to do to get back to that mark, right? Where do we go from here? So let's start with discipline, right? We got to create a habit. We have to create a habit of winning and winning my race. Winning my race comes from the scripture that talks about where Paul's talking about running the race as if to win the prize. Because we can all run a race, right? There's the Good Life Halvesies coming up in a couple of months, and it's going to be darn cold, and maybe it'll get canceled because of lightning again. But if we're just running the race, we might get a medal, and we can take 5 hours to do that. Good job, you ran a race. But if you're training just to run the race, it can be hard. Most of us probably couldn't just jump into a half marathon at this point, right? But training just to run the race is way different than training to run the race to win the prize. World champions don't just go out and jog for 5 miles at an hour-mile pace, do they? No, in fact, if you look at a world Olympic champion marathon runner's workout schedule, they only do one long run a week. They're not doing long periods of time. What they do is they actually train on sprints because they don't want to wear down those long muscles. They want to build them up. And so to build up the long distance muscles, they have to train to get faster in shorter distances, but gradually make those longer over time. And so running the race to win the prize, really preparing to run the race to win the prize, becomes a major part of this. We have to have these short sprints of workouts where we get to that, and we can apply this here to the same way. So number one is starting with a big why. Why do you want to be healthy? And I cannot tell you why. Because while we generally have the same why as believers, we would, of, we want to serve God. What that looks like for me and what that looks like for you can be completely different, right? Because if your gift is in the kitchen and you make fantastic cakes, I don't want you adjusting me with 23 hours of your day, right? I want you to take that effort, 90% of your effort, and put it towards making fantastic cakes. Serve the world through what God's gifted you to do. And some of you, it's gardening. Like I do not have a green thumb. I have like a dead thumb. Right? If I touch plants, they die. And hopefully it's soon enough that I can put it in my mouth before it goes bad, right? Yeah, don't put me in charge of your garden. Maybe I could figure it out with enough time, but where my talent is, right? What God's gifted me with is chiropractic. A little bit of teaching, right? A little bit of preaching. Sometimes I can get a little preachy. Hopefully nobody feels judged here. This is a non-judgmental zone. But where we want to go from here is we want to identify, okay, what's my purpose? What did God create me for? How can I best serve the world? Is it serving the church? Is it serving non-believers? Is it serving those that are broken regardless of where they fall in the church? Like that's where I'm at here. I take care of all sorts of people. A lot of times it does filter out to a group like this where most of us go to church on Sundays and have small groups and prayer groups and want to know more about how to grow our faith as believers. But there are people that come through these doors that I know want nothing to do with the faith side. And so it doesn't mean that I back off on who I am. I just serve them with love, right? St. Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel wherever you go, and when necessary, use words. He didn't say, don't use words. He said, but basically, that your life so reflects God and his calling on you that all you're really doing is just tying up the loose knots by the time that you get to that conversation of who Jesus is and who he means or what he means to you in your life. Does that make sense? All right. So identify that big why. For me, man, it starts with my family, right? It starts with my personal story. Like, it's crazy to me that I didn't know that a chiropractor saved my life, and then I end up as a chiropractor. It's just nuts. Like, that would have been most people's motivation to become a chiropractor, but God had to kind of push me around through the back door and then reveal that story to me to get me there. And it's like, of course I was ordained to be a chiropractor. Why else would I be here? Why else would he have saved my life that way? He could have done it a different way. There could have been a miraculous healing, and it wasn't. And so you come there. So first you identify, okay, why do I want to do this thing? If it's baking cakes, why do I want to bake cakes? And then you ask yourself, okay, what's the next reason? So for there, it's like, oh, because I want to feed people good food. Let's just say that. So I want to feed people good food. Next, ask yourself why again. Why do you want to feed people good food? Well, because everybody deserves to eat good food. Great. Why does everyone deserve to eat good food? We're on level 3. We're going 7 levels deep with this. You do not find your true why, and this is a writer downer if you're taking notes. You do not find your true why, your real purpose in life, until you get through at least 7 levels. And if you really do this, if you really break this down, you will have tears. You will have tears. You may not be willing to go there, though. Oftentimes it gets to the heart of who we are, but also a wound that happened to us that may not have been fully dealt with yet. But if you truly want to serve the world and serve God through serving the world, then you have to go through those 7 levels. And so your exercise at home, whether it's tonight or over the weekend or when you have a box of tissues next to you, is to ask yourself, what is my purpose? Right now, it doesn't have to be what is my overall purpose. I felt like I spent the first 25 years of my life trying to figure out what my grand purpose is. And I was like, that's not the right question. What's my purpose right now? What does God have me doing right now? And then starting to ask that why. And as you ask that why, then you'll start to get to the heart of who you are. So start by asking why 7 times. So the personal why, the mission-based why, there's lots of different whys. There's purposes in different seasons. It's changed for me. I don't devalue my time in the ministry. It wasn't bad. I worked as a pastor. I served lots of people. I got to baptize a few people. That's really cool. I got to baptize my firstborn son. That was awesome as well. It was really cool, and I wouldn't trade those things for the world because it got me to where I am today. But my why has changed, or I figured it out better. And so we have to go through that step. Next thing that we have to do, right, is we have to discover the right race. Does everybody know who this guy is? Yeah, right. What did he do? He swims. Is he just okay? He does a good job. He's a phenomenal swimmer. In fact, in history, nobody's done a better job than he has at swimming. Now, everybody in this room would call him one of the best athletes in the world of all time. Maybe not the best, but one of the best. But what would have happened had he, instead of going into the pool, been sent to play soccer? Like, let's say he just grows up in Brazil and he's a street kid kicking the soccer ball around. Do you think he would have been the best in the world at soccer? Probably not. Why do I say that? Well, because he's super tall with super long wingspan, like almost a foot longer than it should be, which gave him an incredible edge at swimming. Now, he wasn't tall enough to be one of the world's best at basketball, and he didn't have the right kind of coordination to be the best at baseball, but you put him in a pool and there's nobody that can compete with him. You put him in the kitchen, good luck, right? And so he had to discover his right race in order to meet his full potential. Same thing is true with each of us. So we have to discover our unique talent proposition. So what is it that you're better at than most people around you? Maybe not everybody. We're not all designed to be the best at everything, right? And maybe not even the one thing that we're best at. There are some swimmers in the world that never beat Michael Phelps, but they beat everybody else in their event. Doesn't mean that that wasn't what God called them to do or designed them to do, but they just happened to be in the wrong generation to be the best. Doesn't mean that they weren't their best. And that's all God asks of us, is our best, right? He doesn't ask for perfection in every moment compared to the people around us. We're not getting stuck in the comparison trap. In fact, that's where most of us get into trouble, is we start comparing ourselves to what everybody else is doing. It's not about what they're doing. It's about what you're doing. And then if somebody is aligned with you, right? If I'm a great swimmer, I want to be in the pool with Michael Phelps, because then we both get faster as we train to be the best. Even if he wins, I'm better for my time in the pool with Michael Phelps because he's in a parallel race to mine. Not the same race. I'm not competing with him. I'm competing against myself, right? Next, get axe, fight tough. So what does the Bible say about specifically the powers and principalities of this dark world? No, number one, it's a dark world, not a light world. This world is not ruled by Christ. I mean, it ends up in the right position. If you look at the end of the book, you look at Revelation, it says that, we are at war. That every day is a battle, that in this world we will have trouble. Now, Christ also says that he overcame the world. He didn't say that he's conquered it yet. That's not till the end of the book. Right? He has to let us all have our free will in making selections. And so we are in a fight. And if we're going to win, we have to get tough with this. And this is something that I see my generation and younger than me really struggle with. It's something I struggle with training my kids, because this is harder. Harder the life you lived growing up, the easier it is to be tough and to train toughness. But the easier your life was growing up, I had a pretty easy life. My dad worked darn hard to make sure that my life was easier. But how's that saying go? It's I forget the quote completely right now, but basically, when you look at generationally, if you had to work your way up to become successful and you experience success, then your kids will live a good life. And their kids may live a pretty good life, but their kids then will struggle to live a good life. But then their kids, because you struggled, or that generation struggled so much, they will have to work for that success, and they'll build up that success, and they'll have the toughness for that success. And we can interrupt this by not letting those future generations have just an easy life or a good life. But we have to instill, and we have to train toughness. We have to be willing to go through the hard stuff so that we can get stronger. So Dan Gable, he's unfortunately the Iowa head wrestling coach, also the Olympic wrestling head coach for Team USA. He's won more gold medals in wrestling than any other U.S. coach before him. But he said that gold medals aren't really made of gold. They're made of sweat, determination, and a hard-to-find alloy called guts. We did the gut health workshop last month. This is not what that's about. Different kind of guts. But you really do. You have to have toughness in order to be, a winner, to win your race, to win that race. Next is you have to develop your strong room. So I hinted at this when we were talking about Michael Phelps. But how do you become better? By surrounding yourself with better people. You should not be the best in the people that you surround yourself with. But what was it, Tony Robbins? So not a pastor. I'm not even sure he's any sort of believer in anything close to Christ. But he said, and he got it from his mentor, who was a pastor, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're the best in your group of those people you spend the most time with, guess what? You're not getting better. You might be pulling the people up around you, and you should have circles like that where you do invest in pulling people around you up. But if you truly want to be better, you should surround yourself with people that you view as more successful than you. And whether that's in business, in your personal life, financially. You have to create these little rooms of people that are better than you. So, right, the faith room. If I want to get stronger in my faith, I have to surround myself with faithful people. If I want to get better in personal health, I have to surround myself with people that are healthy in their personal lives. If I want to be better as a person with more character and like personal growth, relationships. They did research on streets where every single person on the street was divorced, and then they put a married couple there. And statistically, the rate of divorce was much higher than if they put a similar couple on a street where not everybody was divorced. Your neighbors matter. The culture around you matters. Even if you value a long, healthy marriage, you got to be around people that do that and model that for you. The financial room, right? If you're around people that are on Medicaid and suffering and struggling to put the next meal on the table, and that's all you surround yourself with, you're going to struggle to develop the habits of financial peace and financial prosperity. Parenting. I'm in this room right now. And try to put myself around parents that raise really good kids and put my kids in those rooms too, so they can see what really good kids act like. Because my kids, when they get to church, they're not the kids that you want your kids around. Not because they're in the back smoking pot or anything, but because they're the ones that are making noise and they're not paying attention. Anybody relate to me here, or is that just my family? Yeah. No, I feel great right now, guys. Thank you. But yeah, no, putting myself around those people that do a great job of raising their kids sets my kids up for more success because I'm become a better parent. So how do we do this? Well, if we're at war, if we need this toughness, we actually have to create a war plan. So those of you that have military experience, you're going to get this a little bit better, because you don't go to battle without a plan unless you want to do what? You're going to lose, right? So you have to prepare for the week. And that starts with just writing stuff down. It really does. So you can start with a to-do list, and that's a really good place to start. But then you have to give that to-do list legs. You have to prioritize the things that you want to accomplish. And so you take a look at what the week entails. Some of it already has timelines and deadlines, and certain appointments are already in there. Some of it, like I have to go to work and I have to be here during set hours. Like that's pretty stuck in my schedule. But then that to-do list, you start taking those things that you need to accomplish and you plan when you're going to do them. You don't just say, generally, I need to fix the garage door. But yes, Kirsten, I'm going to get somebody to fix the garage door. But yes, you have to say, okay, Friday at 5 p.m., I'm going to make an appointment with myself to meet at the garage door to help fix it. Because if I don't do that, what's going to stay on my to-do list until it's convenient? The garage door. And it's going to be there forever, right? But if I put it on a to-do list, even if I have to kick it back because the kids get sick and they have to stay home and I don't have the margin to do it, now I've given it legs and it has to get bumped back to the next Friday or the next Monday or whenever. Maybe I push it back to Saturday because the kids are feeling better. But I've given it legs and I've given it intention, and it's taken up space in my head. That's not just like dead space, like, oh man, I still haven't finished the garage door yet, and you're kicking yourself and your left calf is so bruised because you're kicking yourself not just over the garage door, but the other things you didn't put on your to-do list that also didn't get done because you didn't put it on the schedule. But now you're starting to accomplish things. And guess what accomplishing things does? It's a dopamine hit. Where do you get dopamine from? Well, alcohol, illicit drugs, certain narcotics, Facebook, the notifications on your cell phone. Those all sound like bad things, but guess what? It's actually a good mechanism in your brain for God to reinforce you doing the right thing. When you accomplish tasks, it's just like all those things that give you the hit for the bad reason, but doing it good, and it reinforces that behavior. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You say in your head, oh, I'm just not good at to-do lists, or I'm not good at schedules, or I'm not good at war plans. Well, yeah, okay, now you're not going to do it. So yeah, you continue to be bad. But you do it, and you do it the first time. This might not make you a person that's good at these things, but you do it over and over and over again. And that dopamine hit works together with you being productive and you seeing the value of it, accomplishing these things. And guess what? Now you can go plant a church and you can grow it from nothing to 50 to 100 to 200 people, and you can influence communities that aren't there. Or you can start a soup kitchen in an area where there's a lot of underfed people that just don't have access to it. Or you can go out and you can start a new business proposition, like let's do a new, I don't know, a new data analysis company in this area where there isn't enough good analytics to help businesses run well. And because I've already created these loops that reinforce each other, I become a person that's much more capable of accomplishing big things, right? Show yourself worthy in the little things so that you can do big things. So this is not my war plan. I am not a 4:30 a.m. person. Why? Because I do not get out of bed at 4:30. My alarm goes off at 4:30. I better have a 6:30 a.m. flight to get to, right? That's the only time I'm getting up consistently. But this is an example. Some of us are morning people. You know, this is like a military type plan. In the military, you get up before the butt crack of dawn, right? This is the butt crack of dawn, right? Right in there. Not the crack of dawn. That happens somewhere in here. But you get up and you focus on those things that are going to set you up for success during the day. And research shows that if you work out first thing during the day, you set yourself up hormonally for the rest of the day. In business training, yeah, whatever that is for you. You know, maybe that's just personal finances if you're in the retirement phases of life. Just take some time, and it doesn't have to be much. Like this sets aside a whole hour for both of those things. You might only need a half hour between the two of those, right? 5:30 to 6:30, devotional time. If you're not doing a devotional time right now, guess what? Don't set aside a whole hour for it. You're going to get done with that first paragraph of text, and you're going to be like, that was deep. That was hard to do. I'm going to pray right now, and then I've now got 45 minutes that I didn't plan out for the rest of my day, you know, to add in there. And so, you know, if you're starting with nothing, just add something. You know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it is enough to get that momentum moving forward. And then this 7 to 11 a.m., that's like my work hours, right? I'm driving to the office. I'm preparing myself mentally to be ready to take care of you guys. And then you guys go away for my lunch break. You know, maybe I take care of some other stuff. Occasionally, 11 to 1, I will go pick up my daughter from daycare and I will take her out to lunch. And I'll invest in my relationship with her because that's one of my things that I value most is my relationship with my kids. Not that I need her to be my best friend right now, but I want her to know that daddy loves her, daddy will always be there for her, and that I want men to treat her the same way that I'm treating her. And she needs an example of that, or else they won't learn that. So I do that in the middle of the day. Sometimes I do that with my boys too. It's just not as romantic, right? And then I come back and I'm starting to prepare myself for the afternoon shift. I come back in, finish that up. On a night like tonight, I'll probably be here till about 9 p.m. and then I'll go home and serve my family again, make sure the kids are in bed and ready for school the next day. If I'm getting home a little earlier, maybe we'll do something fun before supper time or after supper time, and then continue to invest in the family there. So that's just an example. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but you take those areas, you start giving them legs, and then you put the things around it that just pop up in life, and you create a value system within your schedule too. You prioritize the things that are most important to you, and you deprioritize the things that aren't as important. So some of the things that are going to keep us from getting there are myths that you may believe. And one of the big ones in our country right now has to do with heart disease. And when we're looking at heart disease, we have to look at what the society around us is doing. If you want to end up with the same results as everybody else, you do it the same way that they did. And right now, over a third of us are dying from heart disease every single year when you're looking at the deaths. You know, if you continue to live your life the way that everybody around you is living it, that's your destiny, right? 1 out of every 3 of us will die from heart disease. And the lie that we believe right now is that cholesterol causes heart disease. Cholesterol does play a role in heart disease, don't get me wrong, but it's the inflammation, it's the hardening of cholesterol that causes heart disease. More people have heart attacks with normal cholesterol rather than elevated cholesterol. Why that? Because so many people have high cholesterol that take cholesterol lowering medication that never address what? The function. All right, we have to address the function if we're going to get that, whatever caused the cholesterol to go high, to heal in the first place. And when we're talking about cholesterol specifically, the role of cholesterol in health is actually as a wound healer. If you take a scab on your arm and you break it down to its components, the biggest component of that scab is actually going to be cholesterol. And so if all we do is lower cholesterol, guess what you're going to have? Poor wound healing. If you live an inflammatory lifestyle like most Americans do, we were just talking about the amount of sugar that's in the back of my office. Some of you were here for the sugar workshop. That's the average amount that a typical American will consume in a year. 350 pounds. That's just from not paying attention. If it's average, that means that half of people are doing more than that every single year. Half of people are doing less than that. I'm in the less than that half, right? Because I put an effort into it and make sure to try. But if you live that way, guess what it does? It elevates your inflammation. Just that component of it, right? We're not even talking about the acidity that it does to you or the way that it rots your teeth and the dental health and how that contributes. Just from an inflammation perspective, the inflammation damages the arterial walls, and that your nervous system then says, hey, liver, I need more cholesterol here because the arterial walls are damaged. And so the liver then produces more cholesterol. This isn't dietary, right? You're probably eating a low cholesterol diet because cholesterol is bad for you. So let's go get the Honey Nut Cheerios and eat that every single morning for breakfast, regardless that that's your entire dose of sugar for the day. And now I'm feeding that inflammation loop. My cholesterol goes high, even though I'm not eating anything with the liver. I could even be vegetarian, eating that much sugar in the back, give myself high cholesterol. And now I'm giving myself heart disease because the inflammation is causing hardening of that cholesterol in my arteries, and then that increases my risk for stroke. That increases my risk for a heart attack. And so what we believe that's wrong may kill us much faster than what we believe what we know that's wrong that we're doing anyways, because we can inadvertently feed a vicious cycle like that. So yeah, sugar, damaged fats, toxins, they all lead to inflammation. Inflammation is at the root of all disease. When you look at even the spine, I've emphasized the role of the spine so much in the healing process because really that's the job of the spine and nervous system, is to provide healing to your body. But let's say let's say you have a perfect spine, straight up and down from the front, 345-degree curves from the side. You do all of this stuff. Guess what's going to inflame? Everything, including the brain, the spinal cord, the brain stem, the nerve roots, they're all going to inflame, and your body won't heal and function as well. You're going to have perfect spinal health. And if you're still eating sugar, you're eating damaged fats, and you're getting toxins inside your body, it will create inflammation. It won't just affect the arteries, but it's a major component of this. It'll start to inflame. You'll get plaquing, you'll get scarring, you'll get inflammation, and you'll have heart disease and all sorts of other things. It's at the root of every major cause of death in the United States right now. Let's take a deeper dive into nutrition. If you look at just the front of this, without knowing what's in Nutri-Grain bars at all, because I've taught some of you really well, you just look at this. Does this look healthy? It looks healthy, right? Now, you know better. I know. You've been at every class for the last how many years now, Dennis, right? Some of you have been in every class, and I've taught you better, right? But if you were to ignore all this stuff over here and just look at this, that looks phenomenal. You're getting your whole grains, you're getting fruits. Looks fantastic, looks nutritious. It looks like I might even like to eat it. But then let's take a closer look at what matters. What's going into this, right? So one thing here, notice that I didn't even look at the biggest part of the nutrition facts label, the part that the FDA gives the most weight to. I skipped that entirely. Why? Not because it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't matter anywhere near as much as the ingredients section of this. So what am I looking at? I'm looking for things that create inflammation, right? So what's number one? Well, filling, that's the biggest ingredient here. What's the first ingredient in filling? High fructose corn syrup. When you see high fructose corn syrup, you should think not just sugar, inflammation, right? Next, raspberries. Okay, great, something that reduces inflammation because it is antioxidant. Then what's the next ingredient? Corn syrup. Inflammation. What's the next ingredient? High fructose corn syrup. Again. So what's the main ingredient in this thing? Sugar, inflammation. It's basically, you look at this, you should think inflammation. When you think of inflammation, you should think of disease. You name it. Cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, dementia. When you pick up a jelly donut, don't think, oh man, this would taste good. Think, oh, cancer, diabetes, because that's really what it is, right? God did not create jelly donuts on jelly donut trees, right? He created the grain, he created the sugar cane, he created the corn that we now convert into high fructose corn syrup that we call sugar. And in their design states, with all the components that God created them in, guess what they are? Good, because that's what he said in the garden, right? It is good. It has nutrients. It has nutrition. This doesn't, right? You keep going down the list. Sugar, water, good. Artificial raspberry flavor, toxic, inflammation, modified cornstarch, sugar, sodium alginate. I don't even know what that is. Chemical, toxin, citric acid, right? Give it a tang taste. Calcium phosphate. Okay. Oh, now I get some calcium, right? Strong bones, right? Not in this form. Soy lecithin. All right, more estrogen than I really need in my body. We get down here, we're getting into colors. Red 40, hyperactivity, ADHD, ADD, brain disorders. Like, you just keep on going down the list. My son, after soccer practice or soccer game yesterday, they celebrated with all the kids by giving him brownies and Gatorade. My kid, of course, he picks the red one because red, just attractive to him. And I paid him $1 to give it to me so I could throw it in the trash. Right? That's what it's worth to me. Is him not having it is more valuable to me than that dollar. Right? That's what it should be to all of us. Because when I see that, I know that he's not going to act well for the rest of the day. I know that his attention is going to go every which way. He's going to start treating his sister and his brother badly, even though he's a good kid, right? He's a chip off the old block. But you can do things that start to create the misbehavior with that as well. We could go down the whole list here, and I could point out everything that's wrong with everything. I'm not going to do that for everybody. Basically, here's the rule. Know the sugars, right? Know where they're coming up because they're everywhere, because we live in a low-fat culture. We live in a low-fat society where we've vilified fat because we think that fat's the enemy, and it's not true. And we'll get into that here in a minute. I think that's coming up here. But when we're looking at an ingredient list, if it has more than 3 ingredients in it, it's probably not good for you. If it's wrapped in plastic, wrapped in cardboard, and you're looking at an ingredient list that has more than 3 ingredients, you probably shouldn't be putting it in your body. There are some exceptions to that rule, but as a general rule of thumb, 3 ingredients or less. Because what are we supposed to be eating? The corn on the cob. That's 1 ingredient, right? Maybe you added a little bit of butter and a little bit of salt. That's 3 ingredients right there. You just dressed it up. Maybe you added pepper too. Oh no, you broke the rule. But those are all whole foods. You're gonna be much healthier eating that corn on the cob than you will just eating this pure corn syrup crap, right? So fake foods versus real foods. If you look at the caloric value of all these things, they're similar. Which side makes you healthy? Yeah, that side. This side doesn't. This side doesn't build health. You look at all the ingredients on this. What is this just potatoes? Is this potatoes and oil? Yeah. Potatoes, oil, salt, and probably about 5 to 10 different preservatives in there as well, just to get it to the bag. So can you make healthy French fries? Yes. A potato slicer, push it down, put it in a pan, sprinkle some salt, and spritz it with some oil in the oven, like a good oil, like a coconut oil or avocado oil, and bake it at 350 for a half hour. Yes, you can build health with the French fry. But you get it from McDonald's, you get it from Wendy's, you get it from Burger King, you get it from a fast food restaurant in general, or you get it from the grocery aisle where it's prepackaged and frozen, not so much. Bread, are there healthy breads out there? Debatably. Some people know. Like, if you have a gluten intolerance, sorry, there's not a healthy bread for you. It's just not, you can't put the two together. But if you're not gluten intolerant, you talk about like an ancient grain like einkorn wheat, and you put that together right, and you're not adding sugars to it, and you're not adding bad fats, and you're not adding inflammatory ingredients, then yes, there is some bread out there that can be healthy. Good luck finding one that has less than 3 ingredients, but you can make it yourself, right? But yeah, it's going to be way less healthy than a single ingredient, like an apple, right? And even compared to like, avocado or coconut or almond, like all these foods are better for you than even the healthiest bread, right? Because it's much too processed. Slim Fast, how many ingredients do you think are on that label? Probably at least that many, right? And some of it sounds good, right? Because it's the vitamins, right? It's fortified with all the vitamins you need for a day. Well, first off, which scientist in the world do you think knows what you need from a vitamin perspective as good as even your body does? Like just your brain, like what your body needs. Like none of us. Science right now estimates that we understand about a third of what happens inside the human body overall. That's like the best in scientific research. Understands about a third. And that's the most humble medicine's ever been. Medicine about 100 years ago thought that they knew everything that was in the body, had a list of over 100 organs inside your body that they thought had no purpose whatsoever, and they started cutting them out preventatively. And how big is that list now? 0. Every single one of those organs that they used to cut out preventatively, it now has a known purpose that's necessary for your health. Can you live without some of them? For a time. But you start cutting organs out, and all of a sudden, your function decreases. And as your function decreases, so does your health. So yeah, no scientist in the world knows exactly what you need. And so the argument between breast milk and formula, yes, there are some moms that need to feed their kids formula just because they cannot produce for whatever reason, because their bodies are not functioning well, right? But if you have the choice, which one is going to provide better health for your baby? Well, the one that my body produces is always going to know better than what science in a lab is ever going to come up with. Even 100 years from now, let's say they advance 1,000-fold, they're still not going to understand the innate intelligence that goes on inside. Just let's say the acidity sensors that are on the areola of the nipple of a mother. And when the baby puts their mouth around that nipple and the saliva hits those sensors, guess what happens to the milk? The acidity level changes based on what the baby needs. There's also sensors on there saying what viruses and bacteria the babies are dealing with, and the mother's milk starts to produce the antibodies for that. It's just amazing what God's placed inside of all of us that science can't keep up with. So how do we fix this? How do we get the nutrition back in line? Well, we call it the advanced plan. Some of you have done this before, some of you need to do this, but there's 5 key steps to getting back in line with everything. Number 1 is curb your carbs. We looked at that Nutri-Grain bar, and most of the ingredients right at the top of the list. The thing that makes that up is carbohydrates. And you look at the standard American diet, it's carbohydrates. That's how we get 350 pounds of sugar in a year, is because we eat so many grains, so many carbs, so many sugars. So we have to curb our carbs. We have to cut that way, way back. And we're going to cut it back to the level where even some fruits, we don't want to overdo it. The high sugar fruits can really spike your blood sugar in a way too. Fix your fats. Now, our fats are processed. Processed fats are very inflammatory. We want to cut that back as well. Perfecting our proteins. All right, our protein sources, most of the protein sources that we get on a daily basis are inflammatory just because of the way that they're raised. Even if you get, a chicken salad, or not, let's not say chicken salad, let's say chicken on a salad at a restaurant. Where's that chicken coming from? Most times. It's coming from a farm where it sat in about 6 inches of space, never got any exercise, never got any access to sunshine or the outdoors, never grubbed for bugs because food was placed right in front of its beak and it just pecked at the food. It was its entire life. And when it got big enough, they killed it. And that kind of meat, when you look at it and look at what it does to the body, it creates an inflammatory response in your body. Even if that chicken was healthy without any sickness in its body its entire life, it's still going to create an inflammatory response inside your body. And so what should you do? You should eat animal products the way that they were designed to be raised. Like chicken should be free range. Cows should be free range. Grass-fed. Grass-finished ideally too. That's even harder to find. You can find grass-fed cows, but oftentimes they'll feed them for the last 20% of their life corn to fatten them up. So then they can go to slaughter. Guess what that still does? Inflammation. It disrupts your omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid ratio to create an inflammatory response. Trash your toxins. What do I mean? Well, let's flip back to this guy. That's a toxin. That's a toxin. Anything with a number is a toxin, right? Anything that you don't recognize because it's a chemical name, that's a toxin. Some of them more toxic than others. Some of them we know. You know, you look at something like soaps, right? So this is not just even diet. Sodium lauryl sulfate. It's the thing that makes soap bubble. It's a known endocrine disruptor. Basically, down the process leading to cancer. So what should you do? You should look at the ingredients on your soap and say, hey, I don't want that thing in there. Polysorbate 80. It's in every vaccine out there. Almost every medication out there. Known cancer-causing agent. You should be looking at these things. You should be avoiding those things when necessary. Avoiding your allergens and sensitivities. So pesticides here, big one, right? When we're talking about food, what should we be doing? Ideally growing our own food. That's what we were created in a garden. We didn't just sit back and go to the grocery store and Eden Central grocery store, pick up the fruit and vegetables we want. No, we went to the trees and we picked them off. And got man's role, take care of the garden, till the ground, then go get the food, right? We worked for it. You know, Eden was paradise, but it wasn't work-free. We all just want the easiest life, and that's part of the problem, right? You know, the processed food is so much easier for us. So, you know, trash the toxins because the pesticides there, right, when somebody else grows it, are a real major problem as well. Avoiding your allergens and sensitivities. I had to add this one to the list later. You know, I talked for 5 or 6 years without ever talking about allergens or sensitivities. It wasn't until I got my own that I realized the importance of this side of things. You know, gluten, yeah, gluten's in general not so great for you. You shouldn't get high levels of gluten, you know, even if you're healthy. But if you're gluten intolerant or you have a gluten sensitivity, guess what? You're creating low levels of inflammation that are exacerbated by the other things that create even higher levels of exacerbation. And so we have to look at that. Dairy is another big one. You know, in vaccinated kids, peanuts and eggs are a big one because they're part of the immune response that because of the way that they add them to the ingredients there. So we have to identify those. We have to see how our kids react. We have to see how our kids' behavior changes. My kids, they don't have violent sickness when they get their food sensitivities. They wet the bed, they get hyperactive, and they have poor behavior. They stop listening. They don't do what we say. When we feed them good foods, real foods, they get exercise, they get adjusted, they do this stuff. They're some of the best kids on the planet. Like, I love them to death. But that love-hate relationship swings with the foods I'm giving them too, doesn't it? And so we have to be the ones that take charge of that. So an example meal plan, great way to start the day. If you're going to start with breakfast, you're going to start it early, smoothie. Why a smoothie and not a juice? Well, juice is going to pull all the protective fiber out of the fruits and vegetables. And so you're going to end up with a higher sugar drink. Is there time for juice? Yes, but cold pressed. Make sure you're getting it cold pressed so that it's not actually processing out the good stuff when you're getting that juice in there. Smoothies, so much better. Why coconut? Healthy fats. Want the healthy fats. Coconut also has a fair amount of protein in it. Berries, loaded in antioxidants. Then, hey, throw a handful of spinach in there. Why spinach? Well, because spinach doesn't have much flavor in a smoothie, but it adds a ton of antioxidants, tons of nutritional value. Lunch, big salad with good chicken on top, right? Healthy chicken. We want that chicken in there just for the extra protein. You can do it without the protein, but then you're going to add something like beans, or you're going to sprinkle it with nuts on it, or you're going to get some good grass-fed dairy cheese on there, right? A snack. What's a good snack? Apple with almond butter or Valencia peanut butter. We say almond butter because even the organic peanut butters out there are sprayed with a anti-fungal that is carcinogenic. So if you're going to get peanut butter, make sure that it's Valencia peanut butter because peanuts that are Valencia are raised in an altitude that's high enough that that toxin doesn't show up, that fungus doesn't show up, and they don't have to spray the peanuts with that. So Valencia peanut butter is much better. Yeah, just a Granny Smith apple would be great. And then for dinner, grass-fed beef with vegetables. I mean, you can do it in a wok, you can do it, you know, on the grill, you can do it however you want. But you eat that way, right? This is not, don't eat this exact thing every day. You need some variety, right? Get some different kinds of vegetables, get some different kinds of meat. Fish isn't even on here. Fish is actually better for you than chicken or beef is. One is raised the right way again, but you have to get variety. It's not the same thing every single day. You want to see sick cultures, they eat the same thing every single day. Now, I'm at risk for that too, because oftentimes I'm eating lunch in here. And so I keep healthy stuff in the back, but it's the same healthy stuff every single day. So you got to watch out for that. So exercise. Exercise is essential. There is no supplement, there is no vitamin, there's no drug that replaces exercise. I was sitting in continuing education seminar all weekend, and we had the best class was done by the osteoporosis expert of the world, like the world's best and leading expert in osteoporosis. And he said that when it comes to osteoporosis, and he's just talking osteoporosis, there's nothing that replaces exercise. You can't get a shot, you can't take this drug, you can't take a pill. There's nothing that replaces exercise as far as just preventing a hip fracture in the elderly. If you're not getting exercise, guess what? You're cheating yourself. You're gonna break down as far as your bones are constructed. If you're a woman, that goes about 20% higher rate than even man. So you have to get exercise. It's essential. There's a genetic requirement for exercise. Your cells respond better when you're moving. Now, some of you that you do a job that allows you to. I do a great job. Like I get to move around every single day. Cheryl will tell you I was running back and forth all shift today. There was no stop here. I have a physically active job that makes me require exercise. But guess what? My heart rate doesn't do during all of that. It doesn't get above like 80 or 90 beats per minute. Not because I'm not getting exercise, but I'm just not pushing myself. I'm not getting myself into a place where I'm stressing my body. And that stress is required in order to keep everything healthy. And so at least 3 times a week, for at least 5 minutes a day, you should get exercise that makes your heart rate go above 120 beats a minute. And that's just a general rule. For some of us younger people, that should be closer to 140 or 150. But for some of the older folks, 120 is a much safer number, just because of the way that the heart slows down as we age. So we definitely want exercise. These are some of the benefits. But one of the things that we see when we're slowly exercising, like going for a walk, is that we actually, if we go over 30 minutes, our stress hormones continue to increase. And once we hit 30-minute mark, they increase at a point that it actually would have been better for us had we not done that exercise, from purely just a stress perspective. Crazy, huh? Because they say do cardio for 30 minutes, and that's a slow exercise. Go for a walk, take 30 minutes to an hour. No, it increases stress hormones once you get beyond that 30-minute mark. What did I say? I said 3 days a week of at least 5 minutes at above 150 beats per minute. Why? Oh, because of this. Because when you're going fast, when you get your heart rate up, we see human growth hormone released. We see fat is used in a greater way. After you've stopped with the exercise, you burn more fat afterwards. Beta endorphin level. Anybody like endorphins? Usually we do. We love endorphins. They're what make us feel good. Increases the growth of all muscle fibers, slowing down muscle wasting. That's what that does. That reinforces bone strength. We're less likely to get osteoporosis, osteopenia. Muscles also, they increase metabolism and muscle development. It increases fat burning for up to 36 hours. But that's through interval training. Through intervals. And so when I say for 5 minutes, that's not 5 minutes straight where your heartbeat's up there for 5 minutes straight. That's 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And this is not just tracking your heartbeat so that for 20 seconds you're at 150. No, that's 20 seconds of fast movement. So if you're doing this on a walk, you can walk this way. What do? 20 seconds, really fast as you can, within reason. Right? You don't necessarily have to sprint, but sprinters do this. World-class Olympians, they do this. They go as fast as they can for 20 seconds. And then what do? They stop, they shake it off, they keep moving, they don't stop moving, but their heart rate comes back down. Then what do again? 20 seconds on. They go as fast as they can. They're 20 seconds. And then they calm down. 20 seconds, shake it off, walk it off. Okay, then they go again, and they do that for 5 minutes, and they probably switch after about a minute of what they're doing, unless they really are training for speed, but maybe they'll switch from sprinting to calf jumps, and they'll jump as high as they can, or they'll jump up onto a box, and then they'll jump off, and they'll jump up onto a box, and they'll get their heart rates up, and they'll keep going. But what can we do? Like if we like bike riding, yes, bike ride like that. If you aren't doing any exercise routine, find something that you like. Do you like to sit on the exercise bike? Do you like to walk on the treadmill? Do you like to go around the neighborhood? Do you like to play a sport, badminton, racquetball? apply this principle to that thing. Go hard for 20 seconds, take 20 seconds off. Go hard for 20 seconds, take 20 seconds off, back and forth. And that challenges your heart better, and we see a better hormonal response. We see a better metabolism response, so we see a better health response within that. We do have to look at toxins in this story too, right? You know, we look at the amount of medication that the average American is on. As 5% of the world's population, we take 74% of the world's prescription drugs, 80% of the world's painkillers, and 90% of the world's psychotropic medications. That's 5% of the world's population. That's incredibly toxic for us. I mean, one of the reasons I brought Cheryl on here in the office is to help with that side of thing. She taught pharmacology for the better part of 2 decades to professional nurses. And while she can't tell you what to do, she can tell you what the thing you're doing does and can advise you with which direction to go with it. And maybe that's directly to your pharmacist to say, hey, get me off of this thing. But she's not going to be the one to tell you that because, yeah, we're neither of us are medical doctors, right? But there's some wisdom there. Every medication has side effects. Why? Because every medication is designed to stop or interrupt or interfere with a basic metabolic or basic function of the human body, right? It's not adding function. It's stopping a symptom, which may be necessary in the short term. But if you're looking at something like heart disease or type 2 diabetes, you're not adding that function back to your body, back to your tissue. Doing that, in fact, you're increasing the likelihood that the side effects of that will present symptomatically in the long run. Take something like, as toxic as chemotherapy for cancer. Is there a time and place for chemotherapy if you have cancer? Yeah, absolutely. And even some other things. But what are the long-term effects of chemotherapy? Cancer. They'll actually create cancer again down the road, especially the more and more of it that you have. Radiation therapy. We knew for generations that radiation exposure causes what? Cancer, but directed radiation therapy can actually kill cancer. Sounds counterintuitive, but the way that they have it set up, it'll help to prolong your life long enough for you to what? To get your act back together. Change those other things and increase the function that leads there. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the chemicals that we use. One of the most toxic things that you can do is put one of those plugins into your wall that makes things smell better. So many artificial chemicals in there. Known carcinogens, known endocrine disruptors. What's a better alternative? Still plugs into the wall. But what's it do? It takes a naturally occurring element in a very raw state and it starts diffusing it up into the room. And so instead of smelling like the chemical that reminds me of flowers, it's actually the floral scent or the citrus scent or the peppermint or the herb scent in there that helps. Food supply. What are most of those chemicals in our food supply? Preservatives, so they can wrap it in plastic and not have to refrigerate it, right? If you took the same ingredients that make up your Raisin Bran for breakfast and you were to put that in a box on the shelf instead of the bran flakes, how long would it last on the shelf? A couple hours maybe? Because it goes bad so quickly. But those chemicals, they kind of do the same thing to you. They go to your insides and they keep things from being able to be decomposed. Not you, you decompose faster. 10,000 plus chemicals are in our food processing, preserving, and storage. And you look at the University of Columbia School of Public Health, this PowerPoint is about 10 years old. And even then we knew that 95% of cancers were due. And this, again, not a chiropractic journal, not a health journal. This was published in the Journal of Pharmacology Research. Pharmacologists, pharmacists have known in their research manuals that cancers are due to lifestyle factors and toxicity has to do with that. So number one on this list, medications, because we know that every medication has a side effect, a toxic side effect. It's tracked out there. And the more medications you have, the more they interact, the more likely they are to cause side effects. And so drugs.com is a good resource for you personally, but even better, bring that information to Cheryl. She'll help you walk through which side effects may be due to the medications, what the purpose of the medication is for, is it interacting with anything else, and help answer some of those questions. Second is household products. So cleaners, a big one. Bleach is everybody's favorite for getting rid of mold. Guess what it doesn't do? It doesn't get rid of mold. But it's also very neurotoxic. Very neurotoxic. It actually kills neurons. Teflon cookware, forever chemicals, dark waters, great documentary on the effects of forever chemicals, and it's in every Teflon pan. Teflon has been recommended to be removed from the market for the last 12 years now, by my last count. 12 years the EPA has recommended no more Teflon. And what does the industry say? Next year. EPA has no legs to take care of this stuff. They know the science, they know it's bad for us, they know that it causes cancer, that it creates endocrine disruption. Get those nonstick cookware out of your kitchen unless it's ceramic, stainless steel, or cast iron. Ceramic, stainless steel, cast iron. If you've got anything else, it's probably making you more sick than it's worth having. Tap water. Why is tap water toxic? Well, number one, it has an active dose of birth control, thyroid medication, heart medication, like measurably in your tap water. If you're drinking from the faucet after you brush your teeth, you're getting some birth control, guys, a little bit of extra estrogen or progesterone, depending on which type. All right, we don't need that in our system. It also has chlorine in it, right? Bleach, neurotoxic. What else do they add in? Because they used to think it was really good for your bones, especially your teeth. Fluoride, it blocks the absorption of iodine into your thyroid. We know that. And the type that they're putting in isn't fluid-based fluoride, which actually can do that. The type of fluoride that they're putting in is the byproduct of iron smelting process. Oh, it's still fluoride, right? Fluoride. Don't get me started there. The mold and biotoxins, right? Especially if you live in a damp area, older houses especially have this problem. Those accumulate. They really mess them up. If you want to, lots of awful stories with mold. One of my mentors who died of cancer just about 3 years ago. The reason he died of cancer is they found mold in his laundry room, and it had been there building for years and years, and his body just wasn't able to overcome that. You just don't mess around with mold. So check your house regularly. If you get a flooded basement, guess what? Tear it all out just to make sure. Don't just hope that the mold doesn't start growing. Just assume that it will and take care of it proactively. So when we look at toxicity, what we have to think about is the bucket, the toxic bucket, because our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made. We have all these organs here that deal with toxicity. In fact, your lungs will expel toxins through just the air that you're exhaling. Your digestive system, it's a tube for a reason. The toxins go out the bottom side. Your skin, it sweats out toxins constantly. You look at your liver and your kidneys, they're designed to flush toxins out of your body as well. But they have a limit. They have a limit of what they can handle. And if you go over that limit, these things, they start to pile up, and what spills out are symptoms, sickness, and disease. That's what spills out when you get too much toxins. It's like, why did I just now get sick? Well, you filled the toxic bucket. And what'd you fill it with? Bad food. You relied too heavily on medications. You got exposed to mercury, too many vaccines. Prenatally, you were exposed to things. People don't realize that things like lead, they persist through the mother's side for up to 3 generations. So if your great-grandmother had lead poisoning before your grandmother was born, grandmother has lead poisoning. And mom has lead poisoning. Guess what? Odds are pretty good that you do too. Same thing with mercury, except it's 2 generations. Now grandma, mom, you. You can have that mercury toxicity even there. And what's the safe level of mercury? None. There's no known safe level of mercury at all. What are symptoms? Well, you really look at this, and the list is as long as I am tall, twice over. Like, it just really goes down there. Some of the most common ones, weight loss resistance. If you have trouble taking off weight, it can be because your fat cells are holding on to toxins that your body just doesn't know how to process yet. Hormonal imbalances, yeah, if you get too many of these, especially estrogen mimickers, you'll have high levels or low levels of progesterone and testosterone specifically. Brain fog, you're just not clear with your thoughts. Oftentimes that's because of the fog, right? Insomnia, not able to sleep well. Headaches, very common. Fatigue, yes, because your body's constantly trying to deal with all those. Depression, because it's disrupting the neurotransmitters in your brain. Digestive issues, because, yep, your digestive system is so focused on getting stuff out that you're not able to keep the good stuff in. And then allergies and asthma, because your lungs are clogged up with the junk. Those are just some of the most common ones. What's the body's natural defender? Glutathione. It's awesome. Like, and this is an essential amino acid, meaning that it comes from our food, right? We're getting it from outside in. Your body doesn't produce it on its own. It comes from your food. And so there's 3 essential amino acids that actually build it up. It's cysteine, glycine, and glutamic acid. But its job is to support the detoxification processes that happen inside your body. You need that there. And then other things that help with that are sulfur-rich compounds. Activated charcoal is probably the strongest sulfur-rich compound out there. If you are poisoned, you go to the emergency room, they give you activated charcoal, and that'll help to flush it out. But things like, what are we looking at? Onions. Onions is a great source of this stuff. Problem is when you start cooking onions, a lot of this stuff breaks down and it doesn't work anymore. And so while cooked onions are great for you, especially when cooked with garlic, making myself hungry now, you definitely want to get some raw too. Sprinkle it on a salad. It gives it a nice kick and a little bit of flavor. So while it can be sweet tasting when you consume that. Cooked onions also taste sweet, but they're just not going to have that benefit like that if you get it in its raw form. So you do need a mix. You can't just cook all your vegetables. You need some raw vegetables in there because it's not just glutathione. And I'm trying to cover as much as I can tonight, guys, but it's just, man, there's so much stuff, and that's why you have to keep coming to classes. That's why you guys are the lifelong learners. You guys are the ones that are going to reap the benefit of all of this. So here's the deal, guys. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. There's a lot of things in this world that can scare you. We don't have to be scared. We don't have to be scared. We just plan, right? We plan. We get our big why. We make that plan, and we build it. So this is just the start. You know, we're looking at just the role of the central nervous system and how that, you know, is there for healing. And just so many people that they just need to start with getting their nervous system clear. Make sure that the spine is clear. Give yourself the best chance to heal because your body is designed to heal. We're not designed for sickness and function and disease. If that was the case, Jesus wouldn't have said, I've come so that you may have life to the full. He would have said, I've come so that you might fully have life after you die. Right? That's not what he said. I have come, present tense, today, 2,000 years ago, that you may have life to the full. Again, present tense, today. He's not saying in the future, after you get your act together, like now. How does he do that? Well, the nervous system is the union between body, mind, and spirit. It's where everything comes together. It's why I will do this chiropractic thing forever, because this is the seat of the soul. You do not express yourself spiritually without your nervous system. Why? Because your physical body dies without your nervous system. There's nothing to express. You go up as a spirit into heaven, and then God has to create you a new body. Right? He doesn't say we're going to exist as spirits in the clouds for eternity. He says, I will give you a new body. We're going to be clothed in perfect bodies eventually. Yeah, we'll be restored to the garden. That's, you know, you look at the theme of Genesis and the theme of Exodus, it's restoring back to the garden, back to paradise. We're not going to just be spirits. This is physical too, and so we continue to take care of our central nervous system. But here's where this goes, guys. We don't just stop here today. Yeah, one of the things that I love about this class in particular is now we follow it up. What are we following it up with? Well, number one, the 30-day challenge. So I'll just pass one of these out to everybody here. And if you have not done one of these challenges, start today. Start today. I'll give you one too. Everybody gets one. There you go. So this is where we start. You want to get back on track with what God has planned for you. Let's get a plan to get there, right? So number one on this list is a progress picture. Why a progress picture? Because we're vain, right? We like to look good. We like to look in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm so cute. I'm so handsome, right? But it also is a good way of showing us progress that the scale doesn't interpret, right? We can see when we start trimming up a little bit. I know when I'm eating badly because I start to look like I have a beer gut. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very common. Get a progress picture. Whatever level of clothes you're comfortable with, you don't have to share this with anybody else. However, I would suggest if you're married, share it with your spouse so that you two can keep each other accountable. Accountability is going to be key here, guys. If we do this on our own, it's not going to work. Second step is going to be a protein shake. And I say protein shake because if you just do a regular shake, you're going to end up at McDonald's every day, and then this all goes out the window, right? Now we're doing a protein shake, and we're going to be making it ourselves. And you can find recipes for this on the website. You can also find recipes for this in your nutrition plans book, or if you got the Align Your Health Quick Start Guide to Nutrition, it's in there as well. So supplements are in there also. Why would I include supplements? Because you can't do it just with food, right? Our nutrients have been deprived from our soil because of the way that we farm it. And so get yourself the basic supplements. And if you're at zero right now, start with the multivitamin. High quality. I'll help coach you through which ones are good and which ones are not good. Don't waste your money on anything that has a commercial, because guess what? All the investment didn't go into the supplement that's going in your body. It's going into the commercial. That's where they're spending their money. 2 meals, advanced plan, whatever you want. What does that mean? Curb your carb, fix your fats, trash your toxins, perfect your proteins, avoid your allergens. Those are the 5 things. Really, eat real food. Twice a day. Whatever you want, real food. Half your body weight in ounces of water. Why half your weight in ounces of water? Because the 8 glasses a day of water doesn't work. Because guess what? If me and Sonata drink the same amount of water, one of us is going to be overhydrated, one of us is going to be underhydrated, aren't we? I can't tell you based off of random amounts. 8 ounces, I would be underhydrated. You might be a little overhydrated at that amount. Yeah. Half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. 1 45-minute workout. Or let's do this a better way. Instead of 1 45-minute workout, 45 minutes of workout a day. And so if you want to split that up into smaller 5-minute workouts throughout the day, or one intense 5-minute workout, and then 40 minutes of walking, or dancing slowly to the music in the kitchen while you vacuum or whatever. I don't care. But 45 minutes of movement every single day. Chiropractic adjustments and home care. Right? Because we got to take care of our spines. No alcohol or cheat meals. Why no alcohol? Sugar and alcohol is a toxin. Like the research that said that red wine was good for you wasn't a perfect study. None of them were. No, none never will be. Just period. No, there is no perfect research study. You can't encapsulate everybody because you and me are not the same, Jan. What's good for you may not be good for me and vice versa. But if we go back to, the real food and you look at the diets in the Bible, right? Real food. Grapes are good for you. What's good in alcohol for you, or specifically red wine? Now, what's the compound called? Resveratrol. Yes, antioxidants. Resveratrol is the specific one. You don't have to do red wine to get resveratrol. Red grapes have it as well. Just neither has enough of it to really make a difference. And there's so much sugar and other things in the alcohol that are bad for you that's not worth it. Cheat meals. This is 30 days. Guess what? We're not having an unhealthy version of chocolate cake. Do you want chocolate cake? I've got a great healthy version for you to make. I'll give you the recipe, but no cheat meals. And then 10 pages of reading. I'm going to say scripture. We're going to do 10 minutes of scripture reading at minimum every single day. And stats on scripture are this. If you read once a day, you'll continue in the church probably for the rest of your life. If you read 2 to 3 times a day, you and your family are very likely to stay 2 to 3 times a week. 1 time a week, very likely to stay in the church for the rest of your life. 2 to 3 times a week, very likely for you and your family to stay in the church. You read more than 3 times a week, you're very likely to start and lead a small group. To at least share with others the things that you're learning from Scripture. And more than that, you'll actually achieve something in ministry. You'll actually do something big. Whether that's lead a missions trip or start an aspect of ministry within your church or even bigger than that. And so I want that for you guys. So we're going to do 10 minutes of reading the Scripture every single day. It doesn't take much. It's not hard to do. Sample day on the back. It's got a couple of demonstrations there, or examples there. And then at the very bottom, it talks about writing down SMART goals to achieve every week, to get into every single week. That'll help you achieve your goals. Does everybody know what the acronym SMART stands for? No? Okay. So S is specific. You have to be very specific about what your goal is. M is measurable. Right? You have to be able to measure it, or else it's not a goal. A, achievable. Right? I can't say I'm going to win the gold medal next week. Number one, the Olympics aren't next week. Number two, I haven't qualified or trained or done anything there. That's not an achievable goal for me. R is, what is R? Realistic. That's also there, right there with achievable. So realistic, again, I'm not going to get to the Olympics tomorrow. And then T is timely. You have to put a time limit on it as well. And so your time limit can be a week. I wouldn't say try to lose 30 pounds in a week. That's not, a good goal. That's not achievable or realistic. It is timely, however. You've given yourself a time limit. So put all those things together. Major thing is a pound a week. 4 weeks from today, when we're sitting down, we should be able to say, I lost 4 pounds. Because guess what? If we do a pound a week, we can sustain that. We can keep that off. We've changed our lifestyle enough, but not so drastically that it's not going to be sustainable. So that's part one. Part two is this. This is not a one-night study. This is not a one-night workshop. This is really a 5-week, 5-part series. Not where I'm going to teach you every single week for 5 weeks, but where we're going to come together and discuss. And so what I need you guys to do is I'm going to send this sheet around. Cheryl, can you get me a clipboard? And it's got days and times. And what each of you is going to do is you're going to put your name down underneath the date and time that works best for your schedule to meet with me, us, for the next 4 weeks. And it's going to break down into smaller groups, right? We can't, not everybody's going to be able to be here all at the same time every single week. But I want you to pick a time that works consistently for you to be able to come back and to work our way through the workbook. And everybody's going to get one of these. I don't have one for you to take home tonight, but when you come back, you'll get this and we'll work through this together. It's a discussion guide that goes along with the book that I'm not going to give you, but goes along with this workshop that we did. Because there's way more to this than we can achieve just in one night, right? Because if we just do this one night, I can give you, you can take maybe 3 action steps and start to apply it. And that would be a stretch, 3 action steps. So if we do this consistently over the next couple of weeks, guess what? Not only can we achieve 2 or 3 things a week, but we also have people around us to support us that are going through the same journey, right? And so for the next 4 weeks, we're going to commit to that. So I'm going to send this around. The dates are Mondays at 6:15, Wednesdays at 6:15, and Thursdays at 6:15. So just look at your schedule and pick the time that works best for you. And guess what? There's a lot of people out there right now that are watching online that want to be part of this study. So if you're watching online, just text me. Text the office with which time works for you to come back. Because guess what? This workshop doesn't work unless we do this. It doesn't. Like you got some good information, but most of you, you've heard this before. I didn't have to tell you that an apple is healthier than a donut. It didn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot to understand that. But the discipline behind it does take more, doesn't it? to go into church and say, I'm not having that piece of cancer. I mean, donut. That takes more discipline. And so peer pressure, using peer pressure for yourself is going to help get you there. So I've got some of these flyers here. I'll send them around. Everybody take one. Hand those to your friends. Bring your friends with you. They don't need to sit through this to get benefit out of the next 4 weeks. So pick your time, take a flyer, bring a friend, bring somebody that you want to help you be accountable. If you already have your accountability partner with you here because they're your spouse, guess what? Bring a couple that you like to be around, that you want to be part of your strong room to this. Share the link with them that I put up on Facebook today that has the YouTube video that we're recording right now with them so they can be here and we can all do this together. All right? So the last thing here is I'm not here to sell you supplements tonight, but if you do need anything, it is 15% off tonight because that's what I do for workshops. If you have your card with you, I will give you a punch tonight, get you an additional percentage point off on supplements. If you don't have a card, we'll get you a card and we'll start that up. Those reset in January. We'll make a new one come January, but we have 5 more months left with those card punches. So any questions, I'll stick around. Let me pray. We'll wrap this thing up. And then we'll make sure that everybody's signed up for a night in the coming weeks so that we can continue to do this study and make sure that you guys are moving forward. All right, bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to meet together as a group. Thank you that you were here and present and moving in this room, moving in our hearts, convicting us of certain things and moving us forward on this journey towards not just health, but life and vitality and freedom in you. Lord, we thank you for your son, Jesus, and the opportunity that he gave us by sacrificing his life on the cross. Lord, give us the strength and discipline to do things to actually be able to serve your kingdom and do greater things than what we've accomplished so far. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right.